Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live stream and show of Systematic Geekology. It's time to geek out. I'm very excited to be with you today on the podcast and live streaming from YouTube. It's a new year and there's so much geeky content and we can't wait to dive into it. And so, welcome geekologists, those who like to go deep with us on those things that we geek out on and find the questions that rise to the surface when it comes to our faith and philosophy and theology and the communities and narratives that we are a part of. And today's a laid back episode. It's a what's new episode, but I have some friends with me. We're going to talk about what we're geeking out on, but also we're going to make a confession that, man, there is so much geeky content that sometimes we feel a little overwhelmed about trying to keep up with it all. And so we want to give you permission that if you don't feel like you can keep up with it all, that's okay. Just geek out on what you have time to geek out on, and live life and faith to its fullest. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my friends on stage. Booyah. There they are. Hey, John and Barbara. And we share a common college, different times when we graduated, and common things we geek out on. So can't wait to get to know them a little bit and what's going on in their lives and family and faith and what they geek out on. So let's kind of hop in and share a little bit about ourselves. Barbara, John, share with us who you are, where are you at, where do you live, what's your things you like to geek out on. Just let's just go free here and tell us a little about who you are.
Okay.
You go first.
Real quick, since I've already started speaking. Real quick, I was born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina. Grew up in the country, played in the woods, outdoors, and things like that. Nice. And I developed an interest in creative writing and fantasy at a young age. I got into things like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And really like things like dragons and stuff. I liked reading Aragon and Golden Compass and stories like that. And in high school, I really started to develop my interest in creative writing, and I started to write my own stories. And then I got not a scholarship, but I went to UNCW to pursue a degree in creative writing because I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life, because That's where my passion is. That's where my talent is. And I got a degree in writing at UNCW in Wilmington, North Carolina in 2013, which I can't believe is 11 years ago now. But I still feel like it's yesterday, but it's not. Yeah. My knees definitely let me know that it's not yesterday.
Oh, tell me about it, John.
But when I can't keep up with my kids on the playground, I know I'm getting old. But
I am older than you, right?
But right now we're just outside of Whiteville, North Carolina. And we're developing the Starving Writers Guild, which is our little business that Barbara runs, where that sells our books and stuff.
Cool. Whitefield. There's a good lake there, right?
There's Lake Waccamaw.
Lake Waccamaw.
It's like
Lake Waccamaw.
So pretty.
Yeah, we share some common ground there because I graduated from UNC Wilmington in the 1900s, and so I definitely feel it in my back.
Is it black and white then?
It was everything. I'm surprised that like my screen isn't black and white as it comes up on the screen here. But I went thinking marine biology and took a lab, and then was like, oh man, you got to do actually science. And then, but then worked at a summer camp, and that led me down the road to be a pastor. But I am really excited because of the studios and because of the filming they've done at UNCW around at Wilmington. And I'm so glad that they have a creative writing degree that people go there and learn how to write, whether it's scripts or books or whatever. It's really kind of helped the creative process. Creative people come out of Wilmington, so I'm super, super proud of that. And we'll talk more about the Start a Writers Guild here in a minute. But I do have to show this the comment from your good friend who said, "Hey, look, it's my good friend Ann John." So let's
Christian.
a little bit of
I love that.
of who you are and what you're doing. I met you at a Comic-Con in Wilmington, a Daycon last spring, and bought a couple books from you. But yeah, you have a similar story too.
I am somewhat similar, somewhat different to John. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that was my hometown. I would be more of a city girl because I didn't get out in the country very much. But I grew up in Raleigh. We went to UNCW. My older sister actually graduated from UNCW as well. So I followed her footsteps. But where she majored in science, I majored in creative writing as well. That's where I met John and Christian. All three of us were buddies at the same class.
That's great.
Where John started writing his own stories, I actually started writing fan fiction first, which is stories based off of already created fandoms. So nice. I actually started with Transformers, the movie. So that was one of my first fan fictions. And then after that, I did one from the Forbidden Kingdom, which was a movie. So
the Jackie Chan Jet Li?
Yeah. It's like a based off of Journey to the West, the poem, the Chinese poem. But let's see. Yeah, I run the guild. I'm also starting to do live streaming on an app called Whatnot. And we sell Pokemon cards there. So Pokemon cards and my Pokemon art to supplement the process of publishing and paying for covers for our books.
Nice.
Supports our writing habit.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Now, did you guys bond? You met at UNCW, but bond over geeky stuff with Christian, like Pokemon or those kind of things, or writing fantasy, where that kind of like common ground?
Anime, books. I am sort of a fan of C.S. Lewis, like he is, but I'm more of a Tolkien fan. So the Lord of the Rings, that's a big inspiration for some of my fantasy novels. And I want to say we had some classes together. And so one of our first projects, we ended up working on it together. And then he asked for my phone number. I told him he already had it. And then it kind of went on from there. They're very awkward, but...
Hey, yeah, that's good. Whenever you're trying to like ask somebody out or ask for somebody's number or DM or social media handle, whatever, it can get awkward. And it's supposed to be because you're trying to break the ice. So that's no worries about that. It's for a good story. So now, Barbara, did you read Tolkien first, then watch the movies, or were you like a movie first, then get into
I read them first. My oldest sister is 7 years older than I am. So she actually inspired a lot of me getting into anime and manga and video games and stuff like that. She was actually the person who bought me my copy of Kingdom Hearts, my favorite video game. And I did the podcast on that.
Yeah, I just heard that. Very good job with that. And Joshua, I pick on him that there's like a drinking game every time I hear it. I got my Diet Mountain Dew.
Every time you hear, yeah.
Yeah. But that's really cool. Like I was not a big reader as a kid, and it was hard for my parents to get me to read, but I did read a little Narnia and stuff like that, just because the covers had like a lion and swords and stuff. But I love comic books, I love surfing magazines, love cartoons, superhero stuff. So I got into that, but it wasn't until I was in college and started to become a little bit more mature as a person and in my faith, and started getting into more theology and philosophy, and then started reading, just captivated by good stories. And so when I was working at a summer camp up in the North Carolina mountains, one summer I said, I'm going to read all the books of Narnia and read The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and just kind of blaze through there over the summers, way back in the day when there's no cell phones or social media. So we had time to do that, or didn't feel distracted. So dove into those books. And so when those movies started coming out, I was just really excited to see how the movie would portray these books that I love so much. And I'm actually going back and rewatching the Lord of the Rings movies now for a live stream I'm doing with a friend, and kind of noticing the differences and going back and watching and seeing them. But man, still such a good job with those movies, even though they do change up the books a little bit. But I think that fantasy, that realm of fantasy sci-fi is really what we geek out on. But I appreciate the people on Systematic Geekology because I'm not a big like manga, anime person or video game. Even I'm like some video games for a lot, but that's such a whole big wide range of fandom out there that's not necessarily my wheelhouse, but I can learn from other hosts here on Systematic Geekology about what they geek out on and learn from it, how those stories and fandoms animate them and get them excited, but also part of their faith as well. So I really appreciate those aspects. So yeah, as we mentioned, we're on YouTube. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this in your earbuds or listening devices, hop over to YouTube, find us. You can come see what we look like. And you can subscribe, you can smash that like button. And then, for those who are listening and come over to YouTube, then yeah, follow, subscribe. We're trying to broaden our range and widen our circles in our community of geekdom. So we appreciate all of that. So since this is kind of a what's new episode, I know I had a very busy Christmas and a very busy New Year. So it's taken me a little while to catch up on some things what's new. But what are some things that you guys have been geeking out on lately? It could be anything out there. Like we say, everybody geeks out on something and there's no geek shaming. So whatever it is you're geeking out on, what is it these days that you're geeking out on?
Let's see. I've always been a Star Wars fan, and I've been geeking out waiting for this fan-made re-edit of Kenobi. It's called Trials of the Master by Pixel Joker 95, and he's taking the footage of Kenobi and he's compiling it in a way that makes more sense narratively, but he's also doing new special effects to improve upon what was already done, because I feel like Kenobi was good, but it could have been great, and I think that's what this YouTuber is trying to make it what it could have been.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm a big Star Wars fan too, so we share that in common. And I like Kenobi. It's kind of hit and miss for me. That had some great moments, but then there were some editing choices. It was like, what are we doing? How's that going? And I think it suffered from a number of things, whether it's COVID or the new normal post-COVID, all those things. But I have heard there's some fan edits out there of tightening it up just a little bit. Some of the editing. One of my favorite podcasts I listen to is Rebel Force Radio, and they've mentioned before that there's a Kenobi edit out there that puts it into a couple hour movie or hour and a half movie, and it really looks good. I have to look for that because I do like Obi-Wan as a character, but it's interesting that there's another fan edit out there that's tightening it up a little bit. That's cool.
The Kai Patterson cut is the one you're thinking of. That's 2.5 hours. It works really well. There's a little bit of he's going to do another version of it because there's a little bit of sound issues with it, but he cuts off all the trim, the excess fat, and actually does a better job of editing the show together. And it really should have been a movie, but because it really felt stretched out. But by trimming off a lot of the excess scenes and things, it flows a lot better. But Pixel Joker's version is actually gonna be different than what Kai Patterson did, because Kai Patterson's cut just cut the existing footage, but Pixel Joker's actually redoing the special effects, like the duel between Vader and Kenobi. The entire background of the planet's completely changed, and also on the Fortress Inquisitorius, the design is made to look more like the video games and things like that.
Right. And I think, there was such a push to be like, oh, Disney has Star Wars and can do all these cool movies. So we had ideas, whether it's Boba Fett or Obi-Wan Kenobi and other things. But then there's a streaming package that came on. They were really pushing it to streaming because they wanted to really pull people over to that direction. I think they've learned that, there's not everything has to be streamed or an 8-episode TV show. Maybe some things are better taught or are shared in a story movie format. So what are you going to use with the time you have with your story, kind of the economy of storytelling? What are you going to use? And so instead of stretching it out, maybe it should be a movie. Other things maybe should be a movie, but could be a TV show. So I think they're learning how that goes. And we just heard news. One thing I'm geeking out on is the news that there's going to be a Mando Grogu movie here, that's the next big Star Wars movie coming out, that they're really kind of pushing, that is kind of that fourth season of Mando is going to be an actual movie. So I'm excited to see what they could do with that. Filoni and Favreau can do with Mando and Grogu in a movie format rather than a TV show. So I'm pretty excited about that coming up. I don't think it's going to be 2024. I think production starts this year, but maybe a 2025, 2026 release date. Barbara, what are you geeking out on?
So speaking of Disney, we got my daughter we got a PlayStation 5 for Christmas. So we got her this game called Disney's Dreamlight Valley. And it's basically like a collection of different Disney characters living in a valley together. But the idea is that everybody has forgotten what it's like to live in the valley. They've been affected by something called the Forgotten. And I just really like playing it because I grew up on the old Disney cartoon movies. So like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and stuff like that.
The 2D stuff, right?
Yeah, the 2D stuff. And then so that's where, of course, my favorite game comes into play too. But it's kind of seeing everybody react to the character that you can make. You can customize your own character. And then we play it together. She'll play her game, I'll play mine. But it's like seeing the different characters and being able to interact with them other than a Kingdom Hearts setting. But it's doing like the fetch quests, and you could be able to you'll buy things in the store and decorate your own room and stuff like that. I think it's fun, really cute, and it's a way we could spend time together. Me and my daughter can. So
that's awesome. It's really passing on the geek to the next generation, and
exactly,
how
that,
video game interactive storytelling.
So
yeah. That's great. One thing I've tried to keep up with, and I'm not all the way through the series, is the new season 2 of What If on Disney Plus. I like the first season of What If, and I'm finding that I'm liking season 2 better. Some people have said they like season 1 better, but I like season 2 maybe because I'm hearing those familiar voices that I know from the MCU, whether the actual actor or someone who sounds a lot like him or her. The latest phases of the MCU have been hit or miss for me, like everybody else, and there is kind of nostalgia of those first few phases leading up to Infinity War. And so some of these voices and characters, even though they're in a what if kind of sandbox and experimenting with what if they did this or did that in a different scenario, it's a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun with the animation's really good. I'm loving seeing different versions of these characters or what could be like. And we like to do What If here at Systematic Geekology. We put it out on our social media where our listeners and folks that follow us can vote on what they want the next What If to be. And so I just like that mental exercise and experiment of doing what if and thinking about, and then that what we do with, fan fiction and other stuff, right? We what if it and go down different rows. It's kind of fun to play, as long as we don't get too attached, because if later on they don't do that specific story, we're like, oh man, why didn't they write it like I wrote it? Well, there's that whole thing. But have you guys seen What If or gone down that road yet?
I have not. I know what its general premise is. It's kind of like, well, like you just said, what if they did this, or what would happen if they made this choice? And it's kind of like an AU of stories. And I think that AU is kind of a big popular thing now because of the MCU, where you jump into multiversal stuff, where even like Multiverse of Madness and other things where realities are different.
Yeah, and for some, you can get really bogged down with that and where it gets all over the place. I like the multiverse stories because I like to think about what would different versions of. I guess I've spent so long in the regular universes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, let's see what would happen there. But I definitely could see where that would be overwhelming. You're like, where do I hop in? What's real? What's not? So that could sometimes be frustrating for folks. But I like the What If. And it's been a lot of fun. I don't know if they're going to do a season 3, but so far this one's been really, really good. Joe, what else? Anything else you're geeking out on?
Trading cards.
Yeah, we've been
the trading cards.
Pokemon and getting back into Pokemon because we've been basically buying and selling Pokemon cards online. But we've been getting into the modern stuff and relearning what some of these Pokemon names are and what the
values of the cards,
the nostalgia from seeing my childhood collection and seeing how much it's worth online, and actually talking to collectors and kind of I've been geeking out over that because it's kind of fun to see your childhood. Now I'm using it to kind of make an income.
Well, it's not even just the Pokemon cards. Some of the other streamers sell things like there's Star Wars, and then there's like 2 different brands of Star Wars. There's Disney cards. There's the Lorcana Disney cards, which is different from the collectibles. You can battle with them and stuff. There's anime trading cards, and it's interesting to see like all the different types of collectibles.
Yeah. That's super cool. I collected NBA basketball cards there for a while, back in the 1900s, again, 90s. But I was a big Michael Jordan fan and big ACC basketball fan. So I love to see certain college players I really loved go play in the NBA and then collect their cards. That was fun. But I do think there's a resurgence of, going back and looking at your collection, but then seeing how much they're worth, but also an online community of sharing that nostalgia and fandom around it. Is there a particular device or medium you share with folks on that, or is it YouTube, or is it eBay? What is it that you're looking for?
We do live streaming on an app called Whatnot.
Right.
So they have like different things that you can sell on it, but one of the big things is trading cards. And then I've actually been sharing our faith through Whatnot too. So it's like anytime we come up with like a particular conversation, then I'm like, well, God teaches us to do this or that, or, I'm sorry you're feeling this way, but, remember, we're all his children and stuff like that. But It's been a good medium for me.
Yeah, my catchphrase. There's a lot of catchphrases with Systematic Geekology. Some Joshua likes to use, and one thing I like to use is share the faith, share the geek. And so, what you geek out on can also be an avenue of sharing your faith with others and what's meaningful to you. And it sometimes can be a little bit, it can be disarming, right? Sometimes if you're just like straight up trying to evangelize with someone or invite them to church, it can get awkward. But if you're like, this is what I geek out on, but this is also important to me, is my faith, can be a good avenue for those things.
Hey guys, Christian here to talk about our Captivate options. That's when you send us a little extra money to just help us along with our projects. But what do you get by giving us that extra money? Well, you have access to any future online D&D campaigns. You get extra bonus question content, which we do at least 48 times a month. You can make a one-time donation here of any amount to help support the show. This helps us with our overhead. That includes the editing software that we use, the recording software that we use, the marketing that we have to do for the show, the equipment that we all need to use to help out with the show, and more. So thank you for what you do. Head out to Captivate, help us out. We really appreciate what you do. See you later.
I've tried to go through my comic book collection and kind of weed out comics I want to sell back to a comic store to make room for more comics, or just kind of just getting out of hand. There's a lot of boxes, and I had a lot of fun going through those boxes, and a lot of them are barely worth the paper they're printed on. They were fun at the time, and I had fun reading them, but there are a few gems in there that's worth some money, or, big transitions in time and history of comic books that you could say that's really cool. I'm holding on to that story arc or that particular creator that I really like. Oh, I forgot I had that one. That was actually worth $100. I did not know I had that one. I rediscovered that I had the first issue that Spider-Man had the black suit around the Secret Wars era in the 80s. And I was like, oh, okay, I have that one. I remember that one. That was pretty cool. So it was kind of fun rediscovering that one deep in my long boxes. Yeah, cool. And I'll share another thing I'm geeking out on. I read a book over New Year's called "This Is How You Lose the Time War." And it's not necessarily a kid book. It's got a little bit of cursing in it, and it could be violent at times. But basically, it's like a two rival time war soldiers writing letters back and forth, antagonizing each other, and trying to sabotage the other person's work in this time where they're a part of. But I won't spoil it, but as they write back and forth to each other, they get to know each other a little bit more. They start to care about each other a little bit more. It's hard to hate up close. And so you see this relationship develop in this kind of pen pal scenario through the time streams. And it is it's not very long. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, beautifully written. And every page I felt like there was a sentence. I was like, that's the most beautiful sentence I've ever seen written. And then I turned the page a couple times like, wow, that was an amazing sentence. I was like highlighting, underlining streamlining things. So if you like sci-fi, intrigue, short story, it's not short, it's like 200 pages, but for me, it's not like a fancy novel, 500 pages, 600 pages. But I was able to get through it. It's hard for me to put down over New Year. So I highly recommend that one. In terms of a story you're looking for something different, it's co-written by two authors, so they write these letters back and forth by two different voices. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, let's talk a little bit in terms of we were sharing a little bit about how this is what's new. There's a lot of stuff out there to geek out on. There's so much content. That's why we have like 20 hosts here at Systematic Geekology, because we have different fandoms and people that can come on and share what's going on. But how do you guys feel in terms of what's out there in geek land or fandom in terms of the content and trying to keep up? You have 3 kids, you got jobs, you're writers yourselves. Do you find it hard to keep up with everything?
It is hard.
Absolutely. It's very difficult to, especially with the modern stuff, because, we are 90s babies, so we are fans of anything from the 90s and early 2000s. That's kind of our base of anime and cartoons, and most of our references for, Disney movies when we quote things throughout the day. That's where most of our pull is from.
Right.
But modern stuff, unless it's Disney or Star Wars, I'm kind of out of versed.
Yeah. Barbara, as a mom,
honestly,
mom
I'm
of
just
3.
watching the things that the kids watch. So
yeah, you're in that land. You're in that time of life.
I'm in that land right now because I'm at home. We have a almost 3-year-old, so I'm just like, okay, we'll watch a Blippi, we'll watch Coco Melon. But then we started getting the kids into an anime called One Piece, and we might be there for a while because that's a long one.
Yeah. TJ and James. Others, that's a big one. That's a big fan, and that's the fandom I didn't even know about until I got into Systematic Geekology. And they kept talking about One Piece. I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" And then I was like, "Oh!" And then I started noticing the different shirts people wearing around the cons of Luffy, and I was like, "Oh, there you go. Now I see what you're talking about." I'm with you. I think there's a lot. We tend to stick with those things we really like, especially what we grew up on and get nostalgia about. I love Star Wars, 80s Star Wars, 90s Star Wars. I like Disney Star Wars, but you gravitate toward those things you really grew up on and loved as a kid. And there is such a market for these fandoms, and there's such a fan base, but also like an economy or money to be had with Comic-Cons and the movies and marketing to all that stuff. So sometimes it is hard to keep. Everybody's trying to get their foot forward in the streaming wars and those things and having their own content and IPs. So I definitely feel the pressure. Man, I got to keep up with that. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of sci-fi out there that I know I would like. I just don't have time for it. And I think at some point it's okay to do like a geek audit and claim geek bankruptcy and say like, I'm just going to start from scratch, or just geek out on the things that I want to geek out on. So that's, if anything from this episode, friends out there listening, I'm glad to get to meet some new friends who are going to be hosts again here on Systematic Geekology, but also like you have permission to not feel like you have to keep up with everything. That just geek out what you geek out on. If you're just only able to read a book, that's fine. If you find yourself landing a movie that you were like, that's great, but don't feel like you have to keep up with everything. Dude, John or Barbara, do you have a word of pastoral care that we can give to our fans out there?
Oh, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses, just in everything you acknowledge, God, and as long as your content that you're watching on the TV or whatever isn't bothering your faith, and the fandom that you're getting into isn't getting in the way of more important things like eternal stuff, then by all means watch Pokemon with your kids, and you don't feel like you need to keep up with all the modern day stuff because we're into an ancient religion, so it's there's nothing wrong with historical stuff, and like we're following an ancient creed, but in the modern day you don't have to know everything and be involved in all things. Just keep your circle small but tight.
Yeah, that's good. Barbara, anything to add there?
I was just gonna say, don't feel like you have to be forced to put it on a pedestal, because they're like the super fans who just completely devote their lives to like one specific show or comic book or anything like that. And I mean, that's fine, but be aware that there's other things to your life than a specific fandom. I mean,
that's good.
Friends, family, community, being community, because you can find a community that is about the fandom you like, but it could be dangerous if you put things on pedestals.
Yeah, like with anything, if it becomes too much or your main focus, it could become an idol. It could get in the way of your relationship with your family, your friends, your community, and with God. And so, have fun with it. If it ceases to be fun, if it ceases to be something you're passionate about, and you feel like the pressure and it's driving you, and you're overwhelmed by it, then it's time to look in the mirror and say, all right, maybe I do need to slow down a little bit. Figure out what I like and focus on those things that really are important in my life and relationship that animate me. So and that's why we do all this in community. Systematic Geekology, we see ourselves as a community to support one another, to celebrate what we geek out on. But if you need extra help out there, if you need some advice, you need some things that we can help out with, just let us know. We see ourselves as a community to build each other up and to have fun with things. And if it sees being that, and you're like, man, I'm just overwhelmed with this stuff, I need a break. Everybody needs a Sabbath. Sabbath is built into the fabric of God's creation. God did it in creation. There's talk of Sabbath. Jesus did it, took time to pray. And so I think even within our fandom and our geek, what we geek out on, we could still have Sabbath and take breaks and recenter ourselves and what's really important. So I think that's good to do. Well, as we transition, is there anything in this new year, 2024, you're looking forward to? As we talk about like feeling overwhelmed, what are there some events or things we're geeking out that you're looking forward to this upcoming year?
Well, I was looking forward to Andor season 2, but I feel like that's going to get pushed back, and Ahsoka season 2, that's going to get pushed back. So all I got to look forward to Star Wars wise is what is it? That show that
The Acolyte.
It's going to be like the Goonies in space. You know what I'm talking about? Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about Skeleton Crew. I was thinking of the Acolyte, but there's also, I think we get 3 things in Stars, I think, coming out this year again, 2024. We get the Bad Batch season 3.
Oh, yeah.
Skeleton Crew, which is like Goonies in space. And then the Acolyte, which I'm not quite sure what that one is all about. I haven't deep dived in that, but we get some Star Wars content this year for sure. And guess what? May 4th falls on a Saturday this year. Hey-o. So who knows what we'll do on that day in terms of that thing. But I'm looking forward to those things too.
Play Battlefront 2 all day, the 2005 version.
Well, I was trying to get into that Comic-Con, remember? There's one in Concord, I think, that they're doing on May 4th. And I was going to make some Star Wars themed stuff for that, but
that'd be fun.
I'm still trying to get up with the coordinator for that.
Yeah, I think I think usually Free Comic Book Day is like the first Saturday in May too.
It's something like that too, yeah.
Yeah, so it might be like a convergence of Free Comic Book Day and
May the 4th be with you.
Day. Yeah, May the 4th be with you. That's fun. Barbara, anything you're looking forward to this upcoming year?
So I want to say it's next month, right? I've pre-ordered. I'm stemming from Kingdom Hearts. I'm a big Square Enix fan.
Uh-huh.
There you go. But so my oldest sister, I always watched her when she would play video games like Final Fantasy. So the second part of the Final Fantasy VII remake is coming out in February. So I pre-ordered that and I've been waiting for it for a while. So
Nice. That's cool.
Yes.
I am looking forward to the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh yeah, too, yeah.
Coming out.
Yeah, John's a big
I like
fan.
Avatar a lot.
Yeah, that's you can't beat that cartoon, that series. Top notch. And so, I think when the movies came out, the fan base, a little bit of pushback there. They were like, no, maybe not my Avatar.
The movie was awful.
It was okay for what it was, but I don't think it was very true to the actual series.
They tried.
They tried.
I don't think they tried. That's my problem.
I think the wrong person tried.
Yeah, there you go. Nice
Um,
Shyamalan.
so to see how this plays out in live action and seeing some of the casting stuff, I know my kiddos grew up with that as well, and they're really excited about it.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to see how they portray it that way, and maybe to push people back to the animated version as well. And then I would also say Dune Part 2. I'm really looking forward to that. Dune.
Oh, you mean Dune?
Dune. Yeah.
Dune.
I don't know if you guys have read that
haven't
book
seen
or
that.
seen Part
No.
1 yet.
I don't think we have though.
I have not. Need
Yeah.
to.
Well, I like all these recommendations though. That means we'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I heard the
Yeah.
movie was great, which is important when you make a movie based on a book. You know, a lot of times it's usually not done well. Aragon being a big center in that one.
Twilight.
Yeah.
Twilight.
Well, the book wasn't even all that good, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
the Maze Runner trilogy was probably
that one was good. I thought.
a really good example of making good movies.
Yeah.
They're not, but
It's always hard. I think Joshua has the if I instead of reading the book first, then seeing the movie and be disappointed, that he'll watch the movie first and then read the book because it expands what he's already seen and be able to visualize on the movie. And that's not a bad way to go. I think if you haven't read Dune, it's thick, it's big, but it's one of the if you Google top 5 sci-fi stories of all time, Dune's usually up there. And I think even George Lucas drew some of the imagery from Dune. When I read Dune or watched something, I'm like, oh, George pulled Sand Planet, Messiah figure, Hero's Journey, all those things. He was pulling from that. So I'm not saying he copied, but he was definitely pulling from the influence
inspired
by. And so, yeah, the books is pretty thick. It's definitely a commitment for the book, but the Part 1 was really good. And so I'm looking forward to see how they do Part 2. It's good sci-fi there. Good stuff. Well, why don't you guys, we'll transition a little bit here. Tell us a little bit about Starving Writers Guild. I know Christian's a big part of that. Christian is one of our favorite hosts here at Systematic Geekology. And if people don't know, he's very humble about it. He's an author as well and has lots
humble
of
brag.
I was gonna say he's full of himself.
Yeah. So Starving Writers Guild, you guys formed this up as a group. Tell me a little bit about the origin story and that what you guys have written and where people can find that if they want to dive into it.
Well, immediately after graduation, with our degree in writing, all three of us got degrees in writing, same program at UNC Wilmington. We tried sending query letters and things for our completed novels to agents and publishers across the country, and to no avail. We got copy and pasted letters back, oftentimes addressing the wrong person
Or the wrong book.
or the
We
wrong
got
book.
one that said your book, and then it was wrong book title.
And it was just frustrating. We're
Yeah.
like, you know what? This whole self-publishing thing is kind of starting up, and
Nice.
and there's a way, and it seems like if you know what you're doing, you can do it right. Because I've seen, like, in just modern day, I've seen a lot of really poorly self-published books, like the cover. And hey, I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but sometimes, you get some really poorly made covers, or you open the book and the first page you read like 5 spelling errors. And it's written in a way where you're just like, there was no editor.
Mhm.
But
like a poorly made fan fiction. Yeah.
So, but we realized that, we are 3 people with writing degrees. We can edit each other's stuff, and we can form a group and try to pool our money and get books published. And unless we, strike $1 million deal or something, we can become entrepreneurs of our own books and have something to show for our work. And also, to be like going to Comic Cons and festivals and start to build our own little bit of a fan base. And we're still in our infant stages because we haven't grown up a whole lot.
And then COVID hit. That kind of took away.
COVID kind of stomped out a little bit of the flame. But we each of us have, at least 3 books published. And
we have 11 between us.
11 between us. And it's a lot of fun to be able to talk to people at events who are interested in fantasy or sci-fi or paranormal or supernatural and stuff, and to be able to like, oh yeah, I got a book like that I think you'd enjoy.
Take a look at this.
And it's really where our passion is, and I love being able to discuss our works and stuff. And I meant to ask if you've read our books yet, But
I did buy Christian's book, and it's sitting there on my stack. I got a couple chapters in, they got distracted and pulled aside. But it is. I was thinking about that today. I need to finish that book. It's good. It's well written. And one of the things I do love about going to Comic Cons are the local artists, the people who do their own crafts and self-publish their books and come. Yeah, you have the big time artists from Marvel and DC and writers and the ones who they bring in as the star that draws the crowd. But I love going to those tables. And at that, there was even 2 other books at other tables I bought at the Comic-Con I met you guys at Wilmington that I have not read yet. They're sitting there. I'm like, I need to go back and read those. But it's staring at me every time I go by. Again, that pressure to keep up with this stuff. I'm a slow reader, so that's why I read comics. I can blaze through comics and graphic novels because it has pictures. But yeah, I admire that so much. And so in the guild, you have the 3 of you, and you have the website, and you go to cons and stuff. Are you guys open to having other people be a part of the guild if they produce a good story and want to hop in and say, hey?
We're at the stage where we're open to accepting other members, but we can't particularly peddle their books for them yet.
Right.
The idea is that we buy author copies from Amazon, basically at wholesale prices. And we're open to, if they do the same, they can buy wholesale from Amazon for themselves and then ship it to our address. And then we can compensate them for that. Right. But so we haven't really found anybody who's interested in doing that yet.
Yeah.
But we've given, dozens of authors advice on publishing, on going through KDP, which is the Kindle publishing on Amazon, versus other sites like, was it Lulu and Book Baby or something?
Right.
The other independently publishing sites. And then the things to look out for if you want to independently publish versus traditionally publish. John's a professional editor. He does editing services.
Ooh, that's good. I feel like I get ideas and good writing. I feel like I'm a creative writer, but man, I would need an editor because my spelling and grammar and
my grammar is not the best.
I
got a C in grammar. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
I'm a grammar Nazi, so it balances out.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fun because I think that is important. There's this fandoms and the stuff that we love and admire and read and consume, but then what's our creative outlet? Do we have an idea that we want to do, whether it's a comic book or a fantasy novel or design a video game? Where's your creative outlet? And most of these, the people that make the multi-million-dollar IPs, they're at the top 1%. They're the Michael Jordans. They're the LeBron James. Most of us are just, we're not going to make $1 million off of it. It'd be nice, but then more money, more problems. But it is like a creative outlet. Maybe it's just something we write for ourselves, our friends, our family, and entertain others that are around us in our inner circle. And I think that's important too. But man, I really do hope that Starving Writers Guild and what you guys write takes off and gets some traction. I think it's just incredible. Whether it's people doing their podcasts or broadcasting themselves or promoting themselves on social media or self-publishing, all the tools are at our fingertips. Do what we want. And if it becomes the next big thing, worldwide thing, great. But if it's just for a handful of people that are in our circle that care about us, that's cool too. So I really admire that. So where could people find you if they wanted to find more of your stuff, more of your work, dive in deeper about what you're up to in your stories? Where would they find you?
Well, starvingwritersguild.com is our website. You can find all our novels on there. And
we do have a Facebook page where you can message us.
Yeah, if you want to contact us, you can contact us through Facebook. We have an email address listed on our website. I think it's info@starvingwritersguild.com. It'll pop up in our email. And also, you can find us on whatnot.com.
I'm about to get all of our books available on Whatnot as well.
Is that strictly for phones or just an app, or is it
you can do it on the
on the PC?
Okay.
Yeah, you can get on there on whatnot.com. It'll pop up, and then
NOT or KNOT?
It's WHATNOT.
Gotcha.
Whatnot.
Gotcha. Cool. We'll find
just like stuff and whatnot.
Stuff and whatnot.
Well, they actually have a category called whatnot. So
odds and ends.
Odds and ends.
Brick and brack.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, it's good to meet you all, and glad you're part of the Systematic Geekology family. We'll pull you on more, especially John, when there's some more Star Wars content that drops. We'll have to get on there and talk about that, and then the fantasy novels and the Pokemon stuff, and borrow more One Piece, all those things, or Kingdom Hearts, all that. I know we'll be talking more of those subjects as the content will keep rolling out. To all our friends and listeners and people subscribe and watch on YouTube, thank you for listening. We know that there's a lot of options out there to listen and consume, and you choose to listen to us and follow us. If there's a topic or something that we're not covering that you're like, hey, you guys should really think about talking about this, and how does this integrate with our faith or community, and it has some big questions that come to the service, let us know. Reach out to us on our social media platforms, and and we hope that keep geeking out, keep sharing the faith and sharing the geek, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Peace.
Bye.
Hi, my name is TJ Blackwell, also known as Tejas, Tiberius Wan, Tejas Jackson, Kung Fu Dugong recently. I go by many, many names, and I came here today to ask you to please check out our YouTube channel. There are a bunch of exclusive series there, like Comic Book Ketchup, Manga Mustard, Drinks with Tejas, which is my personal favorite, the one where I get to talk to other people about their favorite drinks or just drinks in general. We have a companion series to our annual theme on YouTube. We do Friday Night Frights, Wednesday Night Weeaboo. Those are both ran by Christian Ashley. He's great. Check him out. There are exclusive shorts, which are pretty new. Christian reviews. He's going to review every Spider-Man comic one at a time, which is insane. Non-canon, which is where Joshua will be reviewing one IP from outside of canon in his favorite fandoms, or a piece of literature that is part of the biblical extra canonical material, which is a super interesting short series. Will's Wednesday pull list, where he talks about his comic book pull list each week. He picks a top comic for his weeklies. And there are other surprise bonus content. It goes straight to YouTube. And many of our regular podcast episodes get posted there as well, because we like to see each other when we talk, and we don't want to rob you of that ability. So check us out, like, subscribe. We would appreciate it so much, and it helps us a ton. Thank you.
Be sure to check out other Anazal Ministry Podcast AMP Network shows. You can see the whole network in a single feed if you're on Spotify, or you could go to Apple Podcasts and find the Anazal Ministries Network podcast, the AMP Network. Yeah, there's just a network on Apple. You can follow the whole thing. You'll get shows like The Homily, where Pastor Will goes through his homily messages. It's literally just Pastor Will's sermons, guys. It's great. You also get access to the Whole Church podcast, where TJ and myself interview leaders from across different denominations and backgrounds to work towards a more full church unity. You can see My Seminary Life, where Brandon Knight discusses his experiences at seminary and then discusses seminary topics, so anyone can have access to knowledge available to seminary students. You also can see Let Nothing Move You over there, where Christian Ashley goes through the Bible in a Bible study type fashion and explains the whole biblical narrative. I also have a show on there, The Dummy for Theology, where we discuss various theological topics in an attempt to show every side of the discussions, leaving you with more questions than answers. There's also The Bible After Hours, where the foul-mouthed preacher goes through the Bible from a more progressive view to challenge the status quo of the modern church. Finally, you can hear The Clydes, where Taylor and Elizabeth Clyde go through weekly discussions in a devotional conversational style method to help us all get closer to one another and to God.